we're always putting out proposals that, they're not all successful. Sometimes the clients that we're working with don't recognize a need that they've got, or we need to wait, some number of months or years before it becomes key for them to act on it. Mm-hmm. And so I put those out, and a lot of them come back, and keep plugging away. And they do long, and not at the same frequency as you always like, but the customer needs to be ready. They need to recognize their problem, and you need to be there to help them solve the problem when they're ready.
Absolutely. So true. So those of you guys that are just joining us at Touchstone Talks, we are here with David Wallace, who is the author of Build a Better Business.
Build Your Own Business.
Your own business.
BYOB.
Oh, geez. How did I forget that? Great title. Great title. So Build Your Own Business, and David also works with Touchstone and our Exit Advantage program, where we work with business owners on the day-to-day.
Thank you, Deborah.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining us. So tell us about BYOB.
So BYOB is an idea for a book that I got, probably 3 or 4 months ago. And it takes the entrepreneur through their journey from the idea that they've got and a passion to become an entrepreneur, and examines whether or not you really want to be an entrepreneur and what it takes, and then all the way through to putting your plans in place, executing those plans, putting the organization in place, and then finally evolving the business so that it can run on its own, and you as the founder do not have to do everything 100% yourself, but you've built up a team and an organization that can sustain itself.
That's great. That's great. I always say it takes a special person to create something from nothing. And that's essentially what all of our founders are doing. They're starting with an essence or an idea and building a whole system for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, unfortunately, there are a lot of people that get started and never move their business idea forward because either they're not sure what to do or they don't know how to do it. And that's where BYOB can help them understand, okay, what are the steps they need to take and when do they need to take those steps? It's not an easy journey, and BYOB...
Our business owners will all attest to that, I'm sure.
Right. BYOB does not downplay any of the challenges that you'll face as a business entrepreneur, but it will help you anticipate what you need to do and be able to put those systems and processes in place so that it becomes easier over time.
Excellent. Excellent. How do they explore whether or not to start the business? That's a topic that I haven't encountered often in a book.
Well, you've got to look at a couple of things. One is you have to have an idea. Mm-hmm. Second, you have to have a passion for that idea. Do you want to bring it forward? But then you also need to take a look at yourself and say, do I have what it takes to move this idea forward? Am I willing to put in the time? Am I willing to risk the resources? And those might be your own resources. They might be investor resources. Up front, early on, it's typically your own.
Right.
Because the investors aren't ready to invest because you haven't proven anything yet.
Yep, so until you have a proven idea, not many people are giving you money.
Exactly. And so you really need to do a lot of self-reflection to understand, okay, do I have what it takes here? And the BYOB will step you through some of those questions you might want to ask yourself and explore whether or not you've got what it takes to be an entrepreneur.
It's an interesting concept. Our business is not that dissimilar as advisors. There's risk in, leaving a comfortable, secure job and going into an advisory role and not getting a set salary from a big company. But I'm seeing a lot of professionals in the market right now that have become disenfranchised with their corporate job,
Mm-hmm.
or they've had an epiphany on how to improve things, or they've lost their job and they're at a crossroads and they're thinking about. I had a lady call about a month ago, and interestingly enough, I happen to know she's a listener too. And she's like, I just want to build something for me. I want to build a business that is mine, where all my work will be rewarded. She was very frustrated with kind of the corporate life. And she's like, and I don't have that idea.
Well, you need to take a look at a couple things. One is, what are your skills? What do you have experience doing? What are your passions? What do you want to be doing? So those two are both very important. When you do have an idea as to how you want to apply those skills to that passion, you also need to take a look at who else is doing this. Right. What does the market look like? Are there competitors that are doing it? How about who would be interested in buying what it is you're offering? Are you solving a problem? That's really a key. Identify a problem that's out in the market and then have a solution to that problem. And once you've answered all those questions and the answers came back positively, then you can start looking at, okay, now how do I build the organization? How do I take the next steps to execute on this idea that I've developed? But you really take some planning and introspection up front.
Absolutely. We see people looking at the businesses that we have at market kind of from the same pool and so there's always the kind of the flex. Do I start something from scratch? Do I find something that's already been established and operate it and change it?
Mm-hmm. There are different ways that you can go into business for yourself. One is with a brand new idea that hasn't been in the market before. Mm-hmm. And you look at people like Bill Gates when he started Microsoft, or Mark Zuckerberg when he started Facebook. Those were not products that were out there before those two individuals took advantage of it. Mm-hmm. Other times you're looking at the way technology is changing markets. Mm-hmm. Uber, there were taxi companies all over the place.
Right.
But the way that, cell phones and cell phone apps became ubiquitous back in the late 2000s, Uber was able to take advantage of that and build on that to create the ride sharing.
Absolutely. Well, and who would have thought there was an app that you could punch in and get somebody to walk your dog?
Walk your dog, or rent a room in your house,
yep.
or rent your house out on the shore.
Exactly. Or swap a house for
exactly.
Like there's just a whole lot of interactions as we change the way that society operates.
Yeah. So those are ways that, as technology changes, that it might open up opportunity for you to build a business. But as you said, you can also look at existing businesses. Mm-hmm. Here in Connecticut, we have a lot of manufacturing businesses. Mm-hmm. They're very well established, and they have very good, very solid clients. But they've been around for, 80 years, 100 years mm-hmm. in many cases. Is there room for them to change their processes, to be improved, to become more effective and more efficient?
I think that's always the case.
Yeah. And so you may come in and decide that you want to pay for mm-hmm. one of those businesses and then improve it so that you can increase its value tremendously.
I had a one client that we met with that was an MSP client. And when I went and looked at their original tax returns, they were a typewriter repair shop when they opened. So just because something starts out as one thing, it doesn't have to. In fact, it probably shouldn't be the same thing.
Yeah. No,
as
exactly. When IBM started in the early 1900s, they were a data tabulating and recording company, and it was basically doing census work, and they would do punch cards and manually record a lot of these things. Well, they saw an
improved
opportunity
that a
in
little
the
bit.
market. Technology helped them along,
Right.
and they became one of the founding companies of the whole computer industry.
Yeah. It's everybody gets to put their mark into it. And,
Yes.
And adjust it generation by generation.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's a market that Touchstone is able to help take advantage of.
Right.
As owners move their businesses to the next set of owners. Sometimes the businesses are ready to move. Other times they're not. And so, Touchstone offers a program like an Exit Advantage, where, maybe they're 2 to 5 years out before they're ready to move. And Touchstone is able to come in and work with those businesses to identify where can you strengthen the business, where can you add efficiencies and improvements so that the valuation on that company goes from a modest valuation to something that is much stronger.
Right. Well, and that's, that's a program when at its conception, what we were seeing is a pool of clients that came in and said, we do the valuation. It's worth, $5 million. I want 12. That's a pretty significant gap.
2x.
So there's not, the market is not going to bear the price that they wanted. So then it's let's look at what's the difference between a company like yours valued where it is now versus what you want to exit at.
Yeah, a lot of times what I see in companies that are looking to sell, particularly that have been that are owned by their founders, is that they take on a lot of the responsibility for themselves. And if you sell the business and that owner goes away, what are you left with?
Right.
And so we help those owners put the structure in place, put the processes in place and the organization in place so it's not all dependent upon one person. And that actually increases the value of the business.
100%. Maybe not 2 times. You might have to do some other things too. But yes, there are pinch points, right, where a company is constrained at a certain level of revenue, and it's kind of grown to its threshold, and you have to change something inside the company to take it to the next level, not just sell more.
Right. Well, the choke points might be in sales. It might be in the operations, the manufacturing. It could be in the way the books have been managed. There are a lot of different things that you need to take a look at. And, a company like Touchstone coming in with their Exit Advantage can help you identify what are the areas of weakness within your business and then work with you and advise you on how to strengthen those so that the company is more valuable than it would have been otherwise.
Right. Well, and, the fact that there are things that are less than ideal is not a reflection on poor ownership. It's just that the owner is nose to the grindstone, probably 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, working on getting things done in the business.
Well, that gets to another point in my BYOB, build your own business, and that is that at one point you need to switch from working in the business to working on the business. Early on, you might spend 60% or 80% of your time working in the business because things need to get done. But as your business grows, you need to flip that so that maybe you're working 20% in the business and 80% you're working on the business. And what does that mean, working on the business? You're looking at the bigger picture. What does your strategy look like? What do your markets look like? How are you stacking up against the competition? As opposed to, if I fix these dials or change out this machine,
right,
we'll get a better process. Now you need to look at the bigger picture and have a team that can handle the details.
Yeah. And that's hard to do.
Yes.
Right? Like, for lots of owners, this is your baby. This is what you grew. This is what you developed. And to be no longer the one that needs to send the invoices or needs to schedule all the people or meet with every client, because you've always met with every client, to take that step back and entitle your people is a hard step.
Well, people do things that they're comfortable with. And, if you've always been an outside person and working with clients and meeting with everybody, that's where your comfort zone is. And so you do those things, but then you ignore other parts of your business that might need your attention.
It happens.
It happens quite a bit. And, I can't tell you the number of clients where I've spoken to them where, they want to know, how do I get back on the growth path that I had, 5 years ago or 10 years ago, or even 1 year ago? And the answer is often, well, what got you here isn't going to get you there.
No.
You need to change things.
Right.
Right. Because you've built the business to this point, kudos. But it's not going to be enough to keep going.
Yeah. You're not done yet.
Exactly.
No, somebody asked me when they need to start thinking about exiting. And my answer is always when you start the business. Like, you need to think about that at the beginning. What is the exit potential of this? And if you can't see an exit, then plan something differently.
Well, it's basically the goal that you're setting for yourself and goal you're setting for the business. Are you building a business just to satisfy yourself? Is it going to be a lifestyle business where it, provides you enough money to buy the new car or buy the bigger house or buy a second home on the beach or in the mountains? Or are you looking to build a business that will make a change in the market, that will, employ, a staff and a team, and you have no problem with the business being responsible for those people being able to have their bigger car and bigger house,
right.
And those sorts of things. What is your vision for the business? Is it all about yourself? Is it about your company? Is it about the community that you're serving? So you need to take a look at those questions and ask those questions and come up with a set of goals for yourself, and then put a strategy in place as to how am I going to accomplish those goals. And those goals might be, 2 years down the road, 5 years down the road, 10, 20, 30 years down the road. But set some ambitious goals and then work to achieve those goals.
Yep. Definitely. If you don't, I get pushback even with Touchstone partners. Why do we set these goals? Why are you making me do rocks? Why are you making me why do I have to do this? It's just fluff. If there's no goal, you'll never get there.
Well, and a goal without a plan is just a hope.
Right. That you'll also never get there.
Right.
So that kind of backwards planning, where do I want to be at 10 years? Where do I have to be at 5 years to get to the 10-year? If I want to be there by 5 years, what's my 2-year? Okay, well, then what has to happen now?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And, I would say as you're developing your strategy for the business, as you're setting the goals for your business, don't be short-sighted. Look far out. Make your goals big. Make them audacious.
Yeah.
There's a book, I'm trying to remember who's the author, but they define wildly important goals. And you set that for your business, and you can set wildly important goals for each of your departments, or have the departments come up with them on their own. But a wildly important goal is one that is achievable, but it's hard.
Right.
But once you achieve it, it's going to move the needle in terms of achieving your ultimate goal.
Excellent. I like that thought process aligns with the way I plan.
I'll give you the book.
Excellent. So I did read your previous book, which was on sales management. Talk a little bit about what it looks like to grow sales and manage that process.
So in sales management, it's really important for you to understand your goals, understand your strategy, put your team in place, hire the right people, whether they are, your sales leaders, your direct sales force, your channel sales force. Are they inside sales, whatever? But put all the right people in place. Make sure that they've got the skills that they need. So that might be training. It might be hiring the proper skills. Make sure that they're fit with your company and your company culture. And then you really take it through to setting up their territories and identifying who their target customers are. Put all of that in place. But also, besides all the internal pieces and the processes that go in place in sales, you also need to work with the other parts of your organization. Sales can't work alone. You need to work with finance. Do you have the capital in place to be able to support the sales that come in? Do you have the inventory in place to be able to deliver on the sales promises? Do we have the people in place? You got to work with HR to make sure you've got that. How about marketing? Is marketing in place to be able to support the salespeople to generate all the leads?
Yes. So often, in sales, the answer is yes. Of course I can do that. And then figure out how to make it happen afterwards. And that's probably not the most efficient way to do that.
I had a partner in an earlier business of mine, and I was responsible for most of the operations and delivery of our services. My partner was the sales guy, and he would come in and say, "Dave, I just sold, the following services at the company." And I said, "Oh, how are we going to do that?"
We don't offer those services.
And he would just say, "Well, I don't know, but you'll figure it out."
Yes, we have had similar conversations. It was the entire reason to go process.
And process is important, and communications is important. Mm-hmm. Holding, conversations between sales and other functions within the organization as well. And then the other piece that I hadn't really touched on is setting goals not only for the sales organization and the overall organization, but setting goals for each of your salespeople. A lot of people, you view them as quotas, and they might be a product quota or a service quota. It might be how many new customers that you land. It might be how much penetration into a new market that you're targeting. And, you've got to set those goals for your salespeople and then hold them accountable to achieving those goals.
And reward them for achieving them.
Absolutely. Reward them for achieving them, but have communication all the way through.
Correct.
To make sure that they're not felt as though they are left on a desert island by themselves.
Right. It breeds desperation.
Yes.
And that's not a good look either.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us, David. We've got one last question that I always ask. If you were not a sales consultant, you were not the role you had today, what other career would you go into?
Maybe I'd be a doctor.
Yeah?
I like to solve problems.
Okay.
And fix things.
Diagnostician.
Could be a diagnostician or a surgeon or something like that. That would have been fun.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining us on Touchstone Talks. It's been great to have you. If you have not liked or followed the Touchstone Talks podcast, please do so below. David's contact information, website, and a link for Exit Advantage and for his book, if you would like to BYOB with him, will all be on our page.
And BYOB is due out in January.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Boom.